Hello, everybody. My name is Rebecca. I'm from the MicroCAD marketing team. And today we're going to go through civil productivity, including our tools and some tips and tricks that Samir will be presenting on. But before we get started, we just have two really quick polls to ask you guys, to kind of gauge your knowledge and your understanding of some of the things that Samir will be talking about. So the first one, have you heard about the MicroCAD productivity tools before? They are an add-on. They're available with our support package, so you could have them. They are available separately, I believe, as well. So just let us know if you've heard about them before. Yes, no, or not sure if you don't know if your company has them. Looks like we have almost everyone's answers in here. Yep. All right. So 56% yes, 11% no, and some of you are not sure. So that is good to know. And we'll go ahead and launch the next one as well. Have you used Autocad parametric features before? Same answers, yes, no, not sure. So we'll give you guys a second just to answer that quickly. All right, it looks like a lot of the answers are no, which is good because that would be something he's going over. So we'll go ahead and close that so I can send it over to Samir and he can get started.
All right, so welcome everyone. Today I'm joined by Rebecca. So if you have any questions as we go through the webinar this afternoon, please feel free to put in the question in the question toolbar in the go to webinar, and Rebecca and I will try to answer as much as we can. So today we're gonna go ahead and talk about two things. First is really something to do with AutoCAD, the AutoCAD parametric tools. So similar to other CAD software and solid modeling software, we do actually have parametric tools native in AutoCAD, not even in Civil 3D. So I'd like to show you those. I find them to be really helpful with site design. So I want to share with those. And then we're going to take it up a little notch and use some design automation with Dynamo. Dynamo is available for Civil 3D, and it can help us create our own workflows, things that the software doesn't automatically do, or it does it in many clicks. We can kind of automate some of the clicking with our own logic. And then we'll finish up with additional tips and tricks with the productivity tools that we have as part of your account with MicroCAD. We have additional productivity tools that we can share with you. So I've prepared a simple drawing today. We have simple site layout, and what we have here is a new intersection maybe, and I've drawn it with just a bunch of arcs and lines. The problem is usually if you have something like that, if you modify something, nothing is parametric, right? It's all just objects, individual objects. And in AutoCAD, just plain AutoCAD. So if I go into drafting and annotations workspace, that's the AutoCAD workspace, you can see that we have a tab for parametric tab. So this is my focus today, this parametric tab here. So once we have geometry drawn, we can kind of give it constraints on how it behaves dynamic to other things. Similar, like for example, I can apply a coincident constraint between those two objects, and now when one object moves, my arcs move with me, and I can keep doing that until I get something that looks kind of like what I wanted to see. A faster way of doing it is just by auto constraining it, and everything kind of auto constrains by itself. And now if I start moving things, the geometry kind of holds itself. And I missed one, so we can constrain these 2 points together. And not only that, but we can also give dimensions. So if I wanted to change the fillet of this arc here, I can apply a radius constraint to that part. And if I change the radius to 15, for example, everything else updates automatically. And maybe perhaps I want those two to be coincident or collinear. So they stay collinear together. Now if this changes, the site changes. All right, so I'm not constraining it enough at the moment to keep it from changing too much. If I can do that one perpendicular to that one, and we can keep continuing to constrain it that way. So now if this one changes, it maintains its shape. All right, so that's the idea behind constraining the geometry and making the parametric tools work for you. There is a sweet spot though, so not enough constraints, as you can see, and it doesn't hold its shape as much, and too much, you remove a lot of the freedom from each of the geometry. For example, an arc has 4 points of freedom. There is an end point on each side, midpoint, and a center point. Each grip is a freedom point, and we can change all of that individually, or we can take away some of that freedom. So I can say, that endpoint needs to be tangent to another line. So I can apply a tangent constraint similar to this end. This line needs to be tangent to that line. Now I have removed a freedom from it. So it's going to always maintain tangency. So the drawing site plans like this, or maybe striping plans where you have a lot of dash lines for lanes and lines parallel to a curved line, and you can start seeing that the geometric constraint really help you a lot with maintaining the geometry relative to other pieces of geometry. I can also apply like a distance between the lanes here, and that will keep its shape. Let's do aligned. Those two are not at the endpoints. I'll do on the other side. So you can keep it that way. And if I decide to make the road bigger, I can just simply come back and change this to maybe 30 and things update. So that's the idea. And we also have all of that availability to us in blocks. I've created a simple block here. Looks like a simple block, but this block has a lot of parametric constraints in it. Parametric constraints for blocks are inside the block editor, and we typically have the dynamic blocks for action types, move and stretch and things like that. Really helpful with symbology on a striping plan, like arrows, turning lanes, and changing the symbols of blocks. But for what we're doing today, we have our geometric and dimensional constraints. Those are called constraint parameters, whereas the tools on the parametric tab are drawing dimensional constraints. So it's if you hover over it, it should say dimensional constraints. Here it is, dim constraint. Whereas the block editor has constraint parameters. The difference is constraint parameters will show up in the block's properties, so we can change, we can update them, and they also have grips like so. So I have created a simple layout for a typical cul-de-sac. One of the mundane things that we deal with Civil 3D and corridor modeling is that there is no simple button for corridor cul-de-sac. We have a workflow for generating intersections, not so much with cul-de-sacs. So simple lines here. That's a polyline. I have dimensions for the flare in and out, the lane width that I would like, and it's mirrored on the other side. I also have an island, and using all of these dimensional constraints together with geometric to hold the shape. So I need lines to be parallel specifically, or concentric. Once we have that, we can then take advantage of the constraints to actually modify this. So if I just want to lay out a cul-de-sac really quickly, I'm going to go back to my Civil 3D workspace. And I'll insert it as a block. So simple block. And I have an alignment parameter on that one, so I can align it. Up and align. All right, so here is the block. And because of those constraint parameters, we can resize the bulb. We can adjust the radius. That was a radius parameter. We can adjust the radius coming in and out. We can also change the lane width, and it's mirrored. If you recall, inside the block editor, that was mirrored. So it just mirrors to the other side, keeps its shape. And all the constraint parameters show up in the custom area here in the properties for this particular block. So I can type this information in. All right, so if I have a particular lane, I know it's a 12-foot lane. The circle radius here is that big radius we have. It's a constraint parameter, so it has a grip. And then we can adjust the flare in and out using a menu. And we also can determine, depending on the complexity of the block that is made, I made this one with a visibility parameter where I can choose if I want a middle island or not. And we can also change the diameter of that island. So I can make it bigger or smaller. And we can also offset the entire thing. So I can say, that bulb goes to the to the left a little bit, or I can mirror it to the right. But there is a lot of parameters that are involved that's making this block parametric. Everything is kind of moving relative to the other thing. So even though the parametric tools in the drawing here is really powerful, the problem is it may become a little bit clumsy, and there is a lot of little tags around, and the geometry all is relative to each other, but it's not really contained. It's contained in the drawing. Block parameters are really nice because everything is kind of contained in that block itself, and then we can use that block to just place it in the drawing as a contained object. So once we have something like this, we can take it up a little bit. So I'm not gonna have an offset for this one. And I'm gonna choose a 12-foot island. And I'll say this looks good. So once we have something like that, we can then use Dynamo to kind of help us automating other things. So with this particular drawing, I have an alignment here, and I have a profile along that center line of the road. And typically, this is easy enough to do the corridor, to do the straight section. But going around the cul-de-sac, there's a couple of things that we do. We have to create an alignment around the edge of pavement. We then have to create the profile for the grade we need. And then we have to create an assembly, and then finally create a corridor around it. So it's definitely doable. It's just a little bit of a clicking involved. And using Dynamo lets us create our own workflows. So I'm gonna simply run a graph here to kind of automate the process for me with a click. So once I have my layout, whether that layout was line work or a parametric block like this one, simply select it, and that will give me the site layout planimetric plan. And then the alignment will give me the grade where I need to meet and the profile for that. So from a simple small dialogue for people to share around the office, you don't need to be a Dynamo wizard to use Dynamo. Dynamo Player is a way to be able to distribute a workflow along a whole team without everybody in the office needing to know how to create Dynamo graphs. I'll say I'm going to meet the road here at the cross slope of -5%. It's a little steep, but it's a more of a visual thing right now. If I just simply play it, I now have a corridor that is created really quickly for me. And of course I can adjust it, but at least I have the beginning stages of my corridor here already created for me. This particular graph also created my cul-de-sac alignment around the outline. It also created the profile for me around the outline. Of course, it also created my assembly. So I have my assembly here. You can take a look at it. This one is pretty simple. It only has one lane, and I'm going to remove that from other space. And obviously it created my corridor, and the corridor itself is targeting the center line alignment, as well as the island polyline that I have, all right, and the center line profile for grading. So all of that, definitely doable. It's just from being productive, from standpoint of just being a little bit more productive and faster with design iterations, that can really help you with testing a lot of situations. So that's what I wanted to show you with the parametric tools in Autocad. Now, of course, Civil 3D builds on that with a lot of parametric behaviors between alignments and profiles and surfaces. But just for plain line work, Autocad does a lot. From this point on, we can, of course, have a drain line that we might want to have designed here. So I have a drain line designed. This is a little bit off. A lot of times we need to fix the inverts on that one. So I have a profile created. And of course I have a profile for the pipe. And let's say I wanted to, I really needed to update my inverts and slopes along that. With the MicroCAD Civil 3D tools, you get a whole host of additional functionality that you can use to streamline the operations of updating your civil objects. We don't really introduce anything new objects, but we introduce a lot of functionality to help you with the picks and clicks. The less picks and clicks you do in AutoCAD, the better efficient you get, the more faster you get. So if we created the pipe like so, and I need to update the inverts, it would be a really pipe by pipe task here. I need to select each pipe, go to the pipe properties, and update the inverts for that. And sometimes we have to do math, and that's never really fun. So we have a pipe editor tool where we can simply select the beginning of the run, the end of the run. Doesn't need to be the extent of the profile view. We can say I want to hold a specific elevation here, let's say 180, and I want to update my slope. Let's say I want to go to maybe 1%. And right off the bat, you see in the drawing, it's a dynamic drawing. It's a modeless dialog. So we have a dialog, but it's modeless. It doesn't stick with the drawing. And we start seeing a preview of what's going to be happening once I hit apply. So let's say I want to match the inverts. So it's matching on inverts. And I want to do like a -1 drop at the structure. Actually +1. Let's do +1. As you can see, the preview is updating, and I simply hit apply, and that's it. So really big time saver here to update your pipe networks. with a single dialog that takes care of recalculating all the slopes for you, and updates the graphics as well, and labels update. Another thing that we like to have is we generally have some points, Cul-De points. A lot of times we have Cul-De points, and we want to reference the station and offset from a parent alignment. This is not something that we can do with Cul-De points. We typically do it with alignment labels, but it's pretty difficult to do with Cul-De points just because there is no work for that. So I have a lot of trees around, and let's say I would like to have a station and offset label to reference that Cul-De-Sac alignment that I just did. So we have a tool for that. From the MicroCAD Civil tools, we have the station and offset to points. And once we execute this command, we can reference a particular group. So I have a tree group here. We can reference more than one alignment. So we have one primary alignment as well as a secondary alignment. I'm just going to reference one alignment right now, the Cul-De-Sac alignment. And if I hit OK, you can see that all the labels for myself here updated for the location of the tree as it relates to the Cul-De-Sac alignment that I just created. And it says right to left. And the labels is basically reading a user-defined property. So we have additional user-defined properties here for the name of the reference alignment, the station offset, and side. And it's dynamic. So if I move my tree a little bit, you'll see that the labels update, the data updates behind the scenes. This is really great for stakeout because I can definitely just simply export the data to a CSV file really quickly, where I cannot do that with alignment labels. So I want to give you a chance to ask me any questions. One of the things that we do is generally manage the visibility of objects and in our drawing. And another really cool feature is that our visibility manager here. It's a single source of what you want to see in the drawing. Instead of going style by style or layer by layer, with Civil 3D, we just want to manage the object as a whole. Objects in Civil 3D contains a lot of components, and if we change the layers of the components, it becomes really difficult to manage objects. But with a single light bulb, I can say I don't want to see my corridor anymore. I can say maybe the center line alignment there, I don't really care about seeing. So parent alignment, right? And that goes away. Maybe the pipe network, I don't want to see anymore. That goes away. Cul-De points, I don't want to see. So really quickly, I can manage and turn on and off objects really with a single source of dialog here that manages that for me. Once I need to see things, I can just simply click to see everything again as I wish. So I'm curious if you guys have any questions about the how to use the AutoCAD parametric tools or Dynamo.
Yeah, so we are, I am getting some questions into me asking when the parametric tools when they became available.
They became available in 2010. It's been a while. They're just not they're hiding in Civil 3D because they're by default they're not on the ribbon. I've modified my CUI a little bit to keep it on the ribbon, but they are available in the drafting and annotations workspace. So you can simply switch to that one and you can see the parametric tab. They're also always available in the block editor tab when you are creating blocks.
Thank you. I do see another one about how can I get Dynamo?
All right, so Dynamo, one of my favorite topics, became available with Civil 3D 2020. If you have Civil 3D 2020, you can install it as a separate install. There is an extension for it. Civil 3D 2021, it comes installed automatically for you, and it's going to always be on the Manage tab under the Visual Programming panel there. you have two buttons. Dynamo itself is the actual application. It's a standalone application. And this is where you can write your own workflows. So let me show you what that looks like. So simple interface where you can organize different codes. The code is already written for us, so that the beauty is that we don't have to create our own, or we don't need to learn programming or programming code. The code is already written for us and it's organized in a library. We just need to organize the workflow that we need to. So connect the dots basically is how Dynamo works. And then, so that opens up our freedom to create our own workflows in whichever way we need to automate things.
Perfect, thank you. And I do see another one asking how you can get these civil productivity tools that MicroCAD offers. So I can actually answer that one. Those are available, as I mentioned in the beginning, with our support package. So if you do have our support, but you're not sure if you have these tools, you can reach out to your MicroCAD representative or myself, or even Samir, and we can see if you have them. And if you do not, your MicroCAD representative can definitely get you a quote for that. Whether you're looking for them, just for one user or multiple, 1 year or 3 years. So we can definitely, look into that and see if you do have them or not already on your account. So if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to throw those in the little questions panel. And we do have some other webinars coming up. If you check out our website and go over to the events section, we do have a couple more for this month. And we are, looking into April and scheduling those too. So feel free to register. So I'll give it another second. If there's any questions, you can throw them in here.
I also have our email addresses on screen. If you feel like emailing us about any other additional questions that you think of after the fact, feel free to email us, Rebecca and I, or your account manager as well. For the civil 3D tools, we also have the AutoCAD productivity tools. You get access to both of them, and we're going to have an AutoCAD productivity tools webinar as well, separate.
Yes, yeah, we have that for next Friday, and we do have 2 other Revit webinars next week, Tuesday and Thursday. So definitely register for those. And a quick note for my email, that first letter is an R. Want to make sure you guys email the right person. So that is an R for the very first letter, and you can definitely email us with any other questions that you have. All right, I don't think we have anything else, but thank you everyone for joining. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you at our next webinar.
Thank you.